theyeshiva.net.
Thank you. I didn't bargain for this morning. I wasn't. I would have woken up in a better mood. If I knew this is coming, I would have woken up in a much better mood. Thank you. Yes.
It spreads. You said it spreads. So
Always. Nuclear reactions, not chemical reactions. Yeah.
So this is the Hashemah, real good.
Right. So what's the summation of Rabbi Aaron's summation? Give a summation of Rabbi Aaron's summation. There's Havaya de La'ela and Havaya de L'Sata, which means Havaya, the way it's manifested. I used to translate it the lower Havaya, the higher Havaya, but I think it's a very inaccurate translation. Havaya de L'Sata is the way Havaya is manifested in what we would call the lower reality. Havaya, the way it's manifested in the reality that we're familiar with, our picture, our experience of reality. I think that's the real translation of the Havaya, the way it's manifested, it's expressed, it's revealed, it comes through reality as we know it. And of course, reality as we know it in itself has much more than one definition, because everybody has their reality. As he says, everyone lives in their world. So it's both objective and subjective, but every level of reality, the way you know it, I know it, we know it, on one level, another level, a deeper level, is a manifestation of Havaya. It's the DNA of creation. And then there's Havaya de La'ela, the way Havaya is expressed, not in the reality that we know it, but as you said, the way it is in the inner mind of the designer, of the creator, even before it's actualized in an external reality, which we would call the universe. So even the universe is consciousness, but there's the way the consciousness is concretized in L'Sata, in the reality that we know it, and the way there is that reality in the mind, in the inner soul. Like he gives an example, that any person who wants to build, whether it's a designer, an architect, anything, any artist, any form of construction, physical or spiritual construction, financial or artistic, before you actually get to do it, first, the entire plan and all of its details is there in your mind. And in your mind, it's completely internal. It's not external from you. It's completely one with you. It's just part of your own brain, part of your own consciousness, part of your own inner life. Then comes stage 2, which is the externalization of it, the concretization of it. Did I just make up a word? Okay, the concretization of it, which means, as he says, lahaitzi mein hakayach el hapayil, to bring it out from a state of kayach, from a state of inner potential to actualization. And in both situations, you have a yud and a hey and a vav and a hey. The yud and the hey and the vav and the hey, which represents, first it's always the yud, which is the tzimtzum, the condensing into a tiny minuscule point, which we call yud, because infinity is not manifested in the individual identity of every creation in the universe. On the contrary, we experience ourselves as the identity that we experience, and that requires first a yud, and then a hey, and then a vav, and then a hey, as explained in the Maimer and in previous classes. And that's why it's called Yesh Ayin, something from nothing, because the yud relative to infinity is called Ayin. He asked a question. The world comes from Hashem, not from Ayin, not from nothing. But nonetheless, it's really a mechudesh, it's really something new, because it doesn't have the revealed imprint of absolute undefined infinity in it. On the contrary, it's defined by a universe which is finite and defined. So it's really it's something from nothing that did not exist before. What do you mean didn't exist? It's all from Hashem, yeah. But it was the way infinity is filtered and condensed in a yud, which is one tiny little nakuda, one tiny little point, and that's why it's called Yesh Ayin, because it's really something from nothing, because this is a completely new reality, and the Yud relative to the Ein Sof, it could be called, so to speak, Ayin. That's Havaya de Lasata and Havaya de Leila. The Balatanya said that's the meaning of the pasuk. That Vayaar Yisroel Asayod Hagdoila She'asa Havaya b'Mitzrayim. For the first time they saw the Yad Hagdoila She'asa Havaya b'Mitzrayim. Vayiru Ames Havaya ve'aminu ba'Havaya. As you say 3 times Havaya in the same pasuk. Paroi said to Moshe and Aaron already in Shmos, Lo Yadati es Havaya. Mi Havaya she'eshma b'koilei. That's his reference to. I don't know about this Havaya. And Hashem tells Moshe, V'yedu Mitzrayim, V'yodu Mitzrayim ki ani Havaya. At the end of the story, there'll be a knowledge ani Havaya. So Baal Tanya says here, the diuk is, you see it also in Parshas Miketz, when Yosef is first introduced to Parah. So he says, I heard that you know how to interpret dreams. He says, Bilodoi. It's not me. Elokim yanes shleim Parah. Elokim will respond and help Parah. Yosef particularly uses the name Elokim. Moshe will introduce a new name, Kayamar Hashem, Yud Kevovke Shalachas Ami. Hashem says, and Parah says, whoa. You're a good Jew. Some of my best friends were Jews. One of them was Yosef. He was my prime minister. He never said this. He said, Elokim Yan Hashleim Pana. What are you giving me new names for? So the Balatanya says that essentially Havaya de Lasata, Parah has no problem with, because it's revealed, relatively speaking. But Havaya de La'ela, this was the issue. And that's why Vayaar Yisro by Kriyas Yamsuf, they saw a gili of Havaya de La'ela. That's what Kriyas Yamsuf means spiritually. Vayiru Amas Havaya. There was a concept of Re'iyah. Re'iyah in Havaya and Vayaminu B'Havaya. It's not redundant, but as he put it, it's 2 separate things. Because Vayiru as Havaya is an Havaya de Lasata. Vayaminu B'Havaya is an Havaya de La'ela. That's basically the concepts that we try to deal with. Good question. Why 3? We are speaking about 2. That's a good question. Yeah. Well, he's talking here Parah in unevolved one, unevolved Parah. That was the beginning of the Chaim. Why does Re'iyah come before? Why does Yira, not Yireh? Yiru here means fear, not Re'iyah. Why does Yira come before Emunah? L'chayr Emunah comes before, right? What is the meaning? What's the difference between these two? We're speaking about 2 realities here. It's not really 2 because Havaya is 1. Havaya Hashem Echad U'Shma Echad. It's 2 in relative to the experience, to the expression of it in our reality. So we say it's 2. Just important to emphasize that it's not really 2. It's 1. Hashem Echad U'Shma Echad. But it's important to understand the distinction so that we should be able to understand what we're experiencing at different points in life. You understand what I just said? People make a mistake. They think it's not 2. It's not 2. Shem echad u'shma echad. Yeah, and it's important to say it's 2 so you could come to 1. Because if you don't know it's 2, you'll never come to 1 because what you're experiencing is, if in your mind there's only 1, then you can't really get to the 1. Because you make peace, you compromise what's really the truth. So it's important to understand the distinction of experience and expression in order to be able to really come to the 1. If you didn't understand what I just said, it's fine. I also didn't, but it's still true. So let's take that the metaphor that Balatanya gives of a person who's building something. And first it's in his mind, and then it's actualized. What's the difference between the 2? Everybody knows there's no project. What do they say? 2 people fail. People who don't have a plan and people who stick to their plan. But let's talk about number 1. People who don't have a plan. Any successful operation in history, I don't know any, but usually a successful operation comes through a certain form of thought, plan, strategy. Strategy always begins in your mind. The architect has the entire mansion in his mind. It's a picture. It's a picture. You see the whole picture. It's true in any area. A writer, you have the article in your mind. The speaker has the speech in his or her mind. The artist has, of course, the picture in their mind. Then you have to actualize it. You have to put it on canvas. Yeah. The businessman, there's people sitting in this room who have built huge companies in their mind. Right? Huh? Most Jews do that. I know a guy who builds a company every day. He builds 2 or 3 companies a day. It's all figured out. It remains inside. No. The truth is, the more detailed you get in your mind, the closer it is to actualization. Because sometimes in your mind it's just very nebulous and general. Yeah. When you have the pratim in your mind, it's already closer to actualization. But this is true in any area, whether you're building an organization or a movement or a business or a company or a website or a community or a home or whatever it is, physical, emotional, spiritual, for profit, not for profit. It always begins with the picture of it, the entire experience in the person's mind. Then there is getting it on paper, whether it's the architect drawing the blueprint, whether it's the writer writing a summary or starting to write, whether it's the speaker expressing, whether it's the contractor starting to build, whether it's the artist starting to draw, starting to sketch. In that itself, there's many stages. There's going to be a yud, there's going to a hey, a vav, a hey, until the end product. But before all this, it's all inside the person. The difference is very clear. Once it's outside of the person, here, an architect can give the plans to the contractor. He may understand it, he may not understand it. He may follow it, he may not follow it. Yeah? We all know the contractor takes the plans and suddenly you realize the bathroom is somewhere else. What happened? This is very common. He said, well, I made sense, but the architect did it this way. But he decided, that the wiring has to go this way. So now, $200,000 later, and migraine, many headaches and aggravation later, you're redoing it according to the original plan. Once it's outside of you, here, it's up to interpretation. It lends itself to distortion. Why? Because it's not anymore part of the person himself. There's now an outside reality. Yeah. As long as my speech is in my mind, nobody can misconstrue what I said. Which is very tempting to keep it there. Once what's the cat, what's the expression? The cat is out of the bag, it belongs to everybody, right? And we all know this. Why? Because people hear what they want to hear. People hear what they're capable of hearing. People hear what they love, what they want to hear. People hear what gives them, what allows for a good WhatsApp viral exchange. So the moment it's outside, it's already, you don't own it. It's not in Rishus HaYachid anymore, it's in Rishus HaRabim. Once it's in Rishus HaRabim, there are those who get it, but there are many who don't. And it lends itself to all types of experiences, including distortions to a radical degree.
Why does it have to be distorted? It could be improved.
Beautiful.
Experiences in life. You take from the Parshas, Moshe Rabbeinu started to judge the people, and Yisro comes and says, you're going to wear yourself out. You can't do it. Please reconsider.
Excellent. It doesn't have to be distorted. It lends itself. It could be. You won't. I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about Rabbi Aaron. You are off the hook. You don't distort. My father had a Yiddish newspaper, the Allgemeine Journal. He had a writer there who was a professor in YU. His name was Tzvi Kolitz. He was a big Yiddishist. His brother was the Rav of Yerushalayim, Rabbi Yitzchak Kolitz, Zechrona Levracha. He was an old, well-known Litvish family. Interesting people. So Tzvi Kolitz was a Yiddish writer. He was an author. He was a novelist. So he wrote that book. What is it called? Yisro Rakover. Yisro Rakover Retz Got. I don't know if anybody read it. Yisro Rakover speaks to God about the Warsaw Ghetto. Unbelievable book that he wrote. In any case, I once read, so I knew him, he's already in the Olam Emes quite a few years. So he once wrote an article. There was a Jewish publication house that published Shir Hashirim. And when you read the English translation, it wasn't a literal translation. And they explained that since Rashi says that Shir Hashirim is a metaphor, so therefore they're not translating it literally. You know, your eyes are shapely and your physique is beautiful because it's a mashal. And in the translation already, they put in the nimshal. You know, Matan Torah was an inspiring moment, whatever. So he wrote an article. He was very upset, Zvi. He was intellectual, and this upset him very much. So he wrote an article, you know, that it's a pity that Shlomo HaMelech wasn't as frum as the translators, because he could have also written everything like that, but he didn't. Yeah, so it's a pity he didn't get lessons from them in Yerushalayim. And then he said that when he was reading the translation, it reminded him of a Jew in Warsaw. He said a Jew in Warsaw took a play of Lahavdil, a play of William Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, and he wrote a Yiddish translation, and he published it in Warsaw. And he said the title page read like this: Romeo and Juliet from William Shakespeare, übergesetzt und verbessert durch Yankel Rosenzweig. Okay? Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare, translated and enhanced, übergesetzt und verbessert, translated and enhanced by Yankel Rosenzweig, whatever the name was. I don't remember the name. Verstehst? Huh? Okay. Uh-huh. This is the concept called lost in translation, in one way or another. Why is this metaphor important to us? Because this, I think, this is the way I understand it, captures the difference, lahavdil, between Shem Havaya de Lasata and Shem Havaya de Leil in terms of our experience. We see the work. You see the work. But do I know the mind inside the work? Do I know the person behind the work? Do I appreciate it from his perspective? Or I just see the result? I just see the result. I see the manifestation. I don't see anymore. It's dazzling. It's very impressive. It's very powerful. When we look at the world, that's what he says. Even Paray understands Shem Havaya de Lasata. What does Baltan mean? Paray understands Shem Havaya de Lasata. So what made him Paray? What made him Arasha Merusha? What it means he understands Shem Havaya de Lasata is no intelligent human being, or even non-intelligent human being, can be deaf to the dazzling beauty, harmony, symmetry of the cosmos. You can't. And of course, the more intelligent the person is, the more perceptive a person is, the more dazzled you are, the more flabbergasted you are, the more overwhelmed you are. And what's the conclusion of it? The conclusion of it is, this is an incredible piece of work. However you're going to interpret the piece of work. The polytheists who believed in pagan gods attributed it to 1,000,000 gods. 1,000 gods, the god of the wind and the god of the storms and the god of the clouds and the god of the rain and the god of the sun, the god of the moon, the god of the ocean, and the god of this animal and the god of this bird and the god of this reptile and the god of the crocodile. Did they see Shem Havaya de Lasata? Of course. They saw creation the way they understood it then, according to their instruments. Every generation improves its instruments. So our generation has better instruments because of the progress we have made in science. But it's fundamentally the same philosophy as Paray. What is it? I do with the world what I want to do. I'm very impressed by it. And what do I deal? What happens now? What's the result? The result is whatever the result is. I make a career out of it. I try to win a Nobel Prize out of it. I dedicate my life to understand it, to appreciate it. Whether I reach what's the issue here? The issue here is what I see is the product. What I see is the bottom line. The bottom line here is look at this world. And the more you look, the more impressive it is. According to all accounts, What do I do with that information? Whatever I want to do with that information, based on my biases, based on my emotions, based on my addictions, based on my fears, based on my needs, based on my my habits and my lower angels or higher angels. You understand what I'm saying? Where does Yiddishkeit begin? Shem Havaya de La'ela. What's Shem Havaya de La'ela? There's an expression of the Balatanya's grandson, the Tzemach Tzedek. Magnificent expression. He says, what's the difference between all Chachmas Chitzonius and Torah? What's the difference? We're talking about real Chachmas Chitzonius. Chachmas Chitzonius means external wisdoms. How does everybody translate Chachmas Chitzonius? How do you translate it? Huh? Secular knowledge. What's the difference, he says? So, you'll ask a regular, what's the difference? This is sheker, this is emes. That's a very untrue statement. Because some elements of Chachmas Chitzonius are very emes. Vaharaya, some of you are going to go today on the George Washington Bridge, and you're going to trust the bridge. I went yesterday on an airplane and I trusted it. It was turbulent, but I trusted it. You go to doctors and you go to physicians and you go to dentists and you go to surgeons, all based on what they learned, and people trust it. So just to say this is sheker, this is emes, is very superficial and very untrue and very unimpressive. And the people don't even believe it. It also shows that you don't understand what Torah is, because the only thing you could say about Torah is that it's not sheker. There's other things that are not sheker also. Some things your therapist told you are also pretty true. Something your shviga told you are also true. Doesn't mean it's halacha l'maish mistina. It's much deeper. Listen, the Tzemach Tzedek says this. He says, Chachmas Chitzonius, it could be mamish emes. First of all, it's based on human knowledge, so it's obviously subjective and people could make mistakes. That's a given, but it's much deeper than that. Even when it's emes, even when you're touching truth, it's the chachma of the yesh. Torah is the chachma of the ayin that precedes the yesh. This is all chachmas chitzonius is analyzing the product called the yesh. And that's pretty deep, because there's a lot in that. Torah begins in the Ayin HaMahava Sayesh, the Ayin that precedes the Yesh. Or to put it differently, the word Chachmas Chitzonius is the word that's used in Svarim, is a very accurate term. The word is Chitzonius. Chitzonius doesn't mean false. Chitzonius means outer. What does outer mean? What does outer mean? Yeah. In relation to something else. The Gemara says in Sukkah that Yonas and Ben Uziel, when he used to learn, every bird that flew over him would burn. So Meir Shapiro, the founder of Daf Yomi, the Lubliner Rav, once said, two Bachrim were learning the Gemara. So one boy says, wow, look at the holiness of Yonas and Ben Uziel. There was such a fire that it burnt up every bird. And the other one said, you know what I'm thinking? Is he responsible to pay? Is the Yonis ben Uziel mechuyev garma dina de garma dina de garmi? How much culpability does he take for the burning of the bird? No. What do you say about these two learnings? This is called chitzonius and pneumius. He asked a good question, but he completely didn't get it, right? He missed the point.
But it's true in
Chachmas chitzonius is Shem Havaya de Lasata, divorced from Shem Havaya de La'ela. That's why he says Paroi can have Shem Havaya de Lasata. What do I mean by chitzonius? Chitzonius means you have it, but you're getting the outside of it, not the inside of it. Yeah. If you want in the world of psychology, somebody expresses tremendous anger, yeah? And you'll say, yeah, he's very, very angry, But it's the chitzonius, it's not the pnimius. That's not what's bothering him. It's a secondary emotion. That's not what's really bothering him. He may not know this. You may be in touch only with your chitzonius. You don't know your pnimius. And remember, what's on one level chitzonius, on a deeper level, what's on one level pnimius is on a deeper level chitzonius. And then what's pnimius on a deeper level, still, relative to a deeper place, is still chitzonius, of course. It's peeling the layer. There's no such a thing that Yiddishkeit, it's not like you have science, you have physics, you have biology, you have cosmology, you have astronomy, right? And then you have religion, which has nothing to do with any of it, and it's just God tells you to do things. That's not the Havana of Torah. That's a superficial understanding. It's much deeper than that. It's understanding the Ayin, the mind, the consciousness. If I could see the world, if the author speaks to me through the world, if the author speaks to me, the Gemara says that Anoichi is Rosh Hashanah, this week's Parshas. The Gemara says on Shabbos that Anoichi is Rosh Hashanah, Ano Nafshi Ksavis Yehavis. Which means I have written my soul into the text. God speaks through Torah, He doesn't speak through a tree. Take any tree, take any bush, take any cell. You know how much God speaks through it? Marabu ma'asecha Hashem, kulam b'chachma sisa, mal haaretz kinyanecha. God speaks through every leaf, through every grass, through every wind, and through every butterfly flapping its wings, and through every nekuda of creation. That's what David HaMelech says. Marabah Ma'asecha Hashem. What's the difference then? What's the non nafshik savis yahavis? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. The chitzonius means I could look at something, I see it, but I'm getting only the external component of it. A person could read in textbooks about chemistry or about physics or about astronomy, incredible stuff. The facts are right, or at least on a certain level they're right. Maybe some things will be disproven, some things won't be disproven. But let's say it won't be. Let's say it's emes. But what am I capturing? I'm capturing only the external makeup of it, the external story. What's its message? What's the ultimate truth behind it? What's being conveyed? Or in this signal that we're saying, what's the Ayin behind the Yesh? Can I see the Ayin behind the Yesh? The ayin behind the Yesh would mean the core energy, the core mind, the core consciousness behind it. How am I supposed to know? All I could do is speculate. Speculate like this, speculate like this. I could see all the facts, call myself an atheist, call myself an agnostic. So Parai, he says, I know, I'm impressed by what I see. When he says those words, what is he saying? He's saying, I know Havaya de Lasata. However, whatever his conclusion is that he's a demigod and he can oppress a people. That's his conclusion of the world. That the world is created, but there's slaves and there's masters, and there's a hierarchy of creation. You could see it in the pyramids of Egypt. That's the philosophy. The whole pyramid is supporting one guy on the top. That's his conclusion. What's this conclusion based on? You look at the world from your glasses and you interpret it. You see everything. And if you're an intelligent person, you see much more. But there's no experience of the bittul of all the olamas to the achdus. The Tzemach Tzedek says that's why you'll see that chachmas chitzonius. He says a lot of people, the more they become brilliant in it, the more yesh they become. He says in Torah, real Chachmas HaTorah, doesn't mean everyone who learns, but real Chachmas HaTorah, the more you learn, the more bittul it is. Why? He says, because here the Chachmas in the Yesh, and here the Chachmas in the Ayin. He says, he writes there, Aristotle, he says, was a Chacham, a Gadol, and his Yeshes matched his Chachma. His arrogance matched his Chachma. And you see it constantly. There are exceptions, but sometimes the knowledge and science, look what I know, and look at the stupid people who still are fundamentalist nutjobs. You become extremely pompous about it, especially when you disagree with them. You ever tried to disagreeing with certain intellectuals? It's a crime against humanity. You would think he's a real intellectual. He wants people to disagree with him. My whole search is for truth. And it may have began that way. But lepoyel, because I'm only dealing with chitzonius, so my search could take me away from my initial objective. And it becomes more about my knowledge and my reputation than the truth. So now if you challenge me, I can't even hear what you're telling me. All I can hear is that you are a meshugane idiot. I told you once, there's a psychologist in Los Angeles, his name is Dr. J. Hamnick. So a Jewish guy, an observant Jew. So he said he was once at a conference years ago. There was a student of Sigmund Freud presenting. The issue that he was presenting is that in every religion and culture and philosophy, I'm quoting him, there's a myth that there was a flood. They all have it. Any culture, philosophy, religion, a culture, there's a myth that there was a flood that wiped out humanity. And the student of Freud asked why. And he explained, based on his teacher's principles, that there's an essential fear of death. We all have a fear of death, so every culture projects this fear on a story that happened, and that helps you alleviate and deal with your fears, which we all do in our own lives. You imagine the worst. You imagine you're dead already. You were killed. This one was killed. That one was killed, and that way, it just it's like an outlet for this essential fear. So Dr. Hamnick raises his hand. He says, "I have another explanation." So the guy says, "What?" He says, "Because it happened." They have a story of a flood because there was a flood. It happened. So he said, he looked at him, as though in his words he uttered the blasphemy, the ineffable, that which should never be uttered. Like it was revealing the secret, giving the Soviets the atomic secrets. It was the worst. He looked at him. The room fell silent. He said, "You can cut the electricity with a knife." And he thought for a moment, and the man looked at him and said, "My teacher, Dr. Freud, said, we will never know who's stronger, a polar bear or a tiger. Never. Because they can't live in the same climate. And that's you and me." End of discussion. The lecture moved on. Now, what do you say to such intellectual integrity?
That's right.
I'm not bothered by the disagreement. We have a disagreement. You see the Yeshes. Now, when he goes home, he doesn't say to himself, "I'm a verstunkene Yesh." He says, "I'm the one who carries truth. I'm the one bringing the world to enlightenment." How locked up is he in his Yeshes? It may have not started that way, but whenever you're in touch only with chitzonius, not with pnimius, your research takes you further away from your own truth that you're looking for. Vayaar, you should welcome disagreement. That's what you're all about. The moment science becomes associated with dogma, it's not just unscientific, it's a war on science. The moment seichel becomes associated with dogma, dogma is This is the way it is. You're a polar bear, I'm a tiger. We can't live in the same climate. There's no room for you in my world. Now, this is a very subtle thing because they're not going to show it. It's all about intellectual curiosity. But this is a very profound observation. It's not happening consciously. It's not like a guy comes into university and I'm not honest. Of course not. It's not conscious. It's all unconscious. Just like in the therapist's office. But what's the realness? What's the truth of it? The truth of it is that the chitzonius, the study of Yesh, brings more Yeshes. You understand the reichkeit of this or not? I don't know if the Yolam understands this. Huh? It's very powerful. Now, I'm going to say this in parentheses. We have this in Torah also, don't worry. We have this in Torah also, because a person doesn't understand what Torah is also. Sometimes it just causes more yachas, and you're completely divorced from what Torah is. And in a way it could be even worse, because you're using Torah for your own yeshus. But it's a separate sugya. I'm not discussing that now. That's when the Torah itself becomes chitzonius. It's not pneumius. But what's the essence of Torah? The essence of Torah is I'm looking for the Ayin, not for the Yesh. What's the Ayin? The Ayin is the singular core that encompasses and integrates and unites all of existence. It's like an author who wrote 100 books. But then I could meet the author, not just the book. From the books I can have interesting conclusions. Or from the buildings, or from the music, the compositions of the musician. But then there is seeing the music from the source of it. Where was this music born? Can I see the mind where this music was born? That's the ayin that precedes the yesh. The nothingness that precedes the somethingness. To take the whole somethingness, go back to nothingness, and that's where you see the yesh from. That's a different yesh. This has to make you more humble. I once heard from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he said a vart, he said it fast. He said the reason that in history you saw that some Jewish personalities with their minds developed science and physics to a place where others didn't, they had revolutionary insights, is because since they have a Jewish soul, so even in their science they had the courage to go back to the Ayin. And the only way you could really change science is if you're ready for an absolute paradigm shift, and that means you have to go out of the box so you could see it completely different, and that means you're not defined by the Yesh, you're ready to go back to the Ayin, which is the source where everything could be recreated. Atkan, now you have to figure that out. But that was more or less in Yiddish what he said. In other words, the seichel of Ayin is a different nefesh hasichlis. There's a nefesh halikiz, a godly soul. There's a nefesh hasichlis, a rational soul. There's a nefesh habahamas, which is an animal soul. The animal soul likes cotton candy, or whatever it does, whatever it likes, pizza. The nefesh halikiz is one with God, is one halikus, einoid mulvada. The nefesh hasichlis is a scientist, Curious George. It's a scientist. But a nefesh hasichlis that's influenced by a nefesh halikiz allows its rational mind to go to places that a behemoth will not allow its rational mind to go. Because a behemoth is ultimately looking for self-satisfaction. Elikus is looking for the ayin, for the source of everything, and where nothing has to exist. When nothing has to exist, you can question everything. The moment you can question everything, you can reshape your entire understanding of something, even if it goes against the status quo of thousands of years of science. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Huh? Yes. Dogma, why is dogma that became the word today? It was just a part of a sentence. It's a good word, dogma, yeah. I don't know what a good word it is, but it's a word. It's an important word, yeah. People associate Jewish religion with dogma. People always write to me, I get every day another email. The dogma of the schools and the systems, all dogma, 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 dogma. In the world of science, there's freedom. And I understand it very well, because religion is often taught as very dogmatic. Questions are abhorred. What Alter Rebbe is teaching us is, if that's your understanding of religion, you completely don't understand what Judaism is. Fine, that's a beginning. That's a good beginning, Rebbe Avram.
You should tell that to the Cheder teachers.
Okay, a Baskel from Holland. How are the Chadorim in Holland?
I heard
There's a big difference between dogma and emunah. See, emunah is dogma. Emunah is the opposite of dogma. Emunah is emunah is the opposite of dogma. It could be anywhere. Okay, we'll stop here. Continue tomorrow, Be'ezrat Hashem. You understand Abba Avram? The difference of the Yesh and the Ayin. Yiddishkeit is not here to be mevatel the Yesh. It's here to excavate the Ayin. The Siberian tiger in the snow. So he could fight with a polar bear. I hear you. Huh?
They have it, and there are only a few hundred left, but there is one.
There's a Siberian tiger. I don't know. Okay. I guess he was referring to a different type of tiger. I don't know. I read this in an essay by Dr. Hamnick after. Okay. So maybe he was wrong about that too, but I don't know. If you see it as a chitzonius of the pnimius, it's all one. It's like klipas noiga, you have to reveal the light in it. You were burnt in this area very heavily, right? I see. This is yours. When was the last time you got back a pen?
Never.
A week later. Okay, listen, we all have to heal. It's a time of healing now. It's a time of unification. The chitzonis and the pnimius.
I mean, I still have a right side of the skepticism.
Okay, that's good. That's also part of the design.
But there are two types of skepticism.
Yeah. One that's looking for Yesh and one that's looking for Ayin. The skeptic who's looking for Yesh, he'll always deny. The skeptic who's looking for Ayin just doesn't not want to get stuck in somebody's box. That's the essence of religion. The essence of Yiddishkeit is that. Avram Avinu, if he wasn't a skeptic, we would all be bowing down to statues, which some of us are. We call them pictures, baseball cards, whatever. Huh? I'm saying, people don't realize Judaism began with Avram Avinu's skepticism. He said, no. The problem is we took his yes and we turned that into a statue.
He was Avram, not Avrum.
Okay.
We changed.
Not all of us changed. Not all of us changed. He smashed every statue. I think Churchill once said that, Lahavdil, he said.
When you smash every statue in our generation.
The Churchill quote is, I don't remember it, you'll have to Google it, but the concept is very profound. We create structures to facilitate our ideas, and then we become prisoners to those structures that we created. Understand? We shape
our buildings, therefore they shape us.
We shape our buildings and then they shape us. It's very powerful. You shape the building to serve you, and then you become a prisoner to that shape. And when somebody says, maybe there's a different shape, no, this is it. Whenever you go to Ayin, you don't get stuck there ever.
Unfortunately, we see it every day in our.
Constantly. That's how life works. You smash the statues, and then that becomes a statue. So you want to know what's the difference between dogma and emunah? I got the question. I understand. We'll discuss it. Bli neder, okay? I don't mean to be a party pooper, but I know I am. Yeah, I don't mean to be, but I am. A party pooper. I was dogma. I don't know.
Unquestionable, undisputed.
It's an shtifat moch. Shtifat moch. Brainwash. Indoctrination. Indoctrination bivrit. Propaganda, yeah. You're not ready to question anything. You're like an occult. When emunah becomes about that, it's very superficial. That's not. That's a problem. They remain 2 years old when they're 20. You can't. It's ridiculous. I don't understand how that works.
I said if so, how can we blame the Arabs? They also say Muna.
Exactly. What do you want from them? What do you want from them? And if you would have grown up in that home, in Afghanistan or Syria or Gaza, you're exactly the same thing.
Isn't this what happened with the whole Beshalach thing? Beshalach was seen as about individualism, and they created a whole institution
Around individualism. Okay, it's a separate issue, but yeah.
This class is brought to you by the yeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.